What up there? So, I normally don't ever do this, but my prediction video was like so off the other day that I feel like I need to come back on here and talk about what happened. So, first and foremost, I have not seen the full fight yet. I saw replays of what happened in the Canelo Bivol fight. Spoke to a couple people about it, a couple of my friends and shit. But a couple of things I noticed. I will tell you this. When I made that video that day, and then whatever it was, the next day or whatever the case was, I went and I watched the weigh-in. And, I mean, call me crazy, man, but I'm telling you, as soon as Canelo stepped up on that scale, or even maybe when he took his shirt off, I immediately saw a red flag. This is not to say that Canelo looked fat or Canelo looked bad or anything like that, but Canelo did not look like Canelo. His body did not look like his body normally looks. I don't know if that was the weight or whether he's, not on PEDs anymore or whatever the case is. And again, I don't want to, throw shit at somebody that doesn't rightfully deserve it. But I mean, I feel like Canelo is one of those cases where it's like, I mean, is there anybody that really thinks the guy's clean? And I'm not saying that to be a dick because I like Canelo. But I mean, it would be hard, in my opinion, for you to make the argument that Canelo is clean. Same thing with Pacquiao. There's a couple of other people. Now, again, I've said this before. I'll say it again. The very, very high majority of people are on PEDs. So I'm not singling out Canelo here, and I'm not saying that, Canelo has this brutally unfair advantage over everybody else, because if the other people are on PEDs and he's on PEDs, then it is what it is. It's a level playing field. Not saying everybody is, but most people are. So, back to Canelo's body. Everything looked different to me, man. The muscle thickness did not look the same, which is odd. I mean, you're going up in weight. And I would have to look at what his body looked like for the weigh-in against Kovalev, because I believe that was his only other fight at light heavyweight. And I don't remember saying this during the Kovalev weigh-in. So, I'll have to go look at what he looked like at the Kovalev weigh-in. But I just thought I just saw a lot of red flags before that fight started. I didn't think Canelo's body looked the same, and I didn't think his hairline and shit like that looked the same. I thought his hair looked a little thin. I thought his hairline was moving back a little bit. Now, again, Canelo's in his 30s, so I understand this is probably going to happen, but, it's a little odd to me. You fight at 54, you lose, you move up to 160, you beat a killer. You get caught with basically using PEDs. You claim you ate tainted meat. It's like, all right, come on. Does anybody believe that, right? Then you go up to 68. You beat a couple more guys. Then you go up to 75. You beat another killer who, again, in all fairness, I don't think Kovalev was really the crusher the way that he was in some prior fights. I think after that second Ward fight, Kovalev was, I don't want to say done, because Kovalev is one of those guys where, I'm not saying Kovalev is on the level of Pacquiao, but like Pacquiao, when Pacquiao started to fade and you could tell that Pacquiao wasn't really Pacquiao anymore, he was still able to beat so many top guys because he was so far ahead of these guys that when his level started to dip, it was still above these other guys. So even though Pacquiao wasn't the same, he was still good enough to beat some other guys. I think Kovalev is kind of similar to that, where no, Kovalev wasn't the same Kovalev that he was prior, but he's still a really good fighter. And it was still Canelo moving up to his 4th weight class and knocking a guy out late. So I'm not really trying to take anything away from Canelo's victory there. I'm just trying to make a point that he's fought at that weight before, and I don't remember saying this about him fighting at that weight last time. I don't remember his body and stuff like that looking like that. Now, again, it's speculation. You want to talk about why does his body look like that? Why does his hair look thin? Why does his hairline look like it's going back? Is it age? I don't know, man. But it's just so many things in succession. It's, you lose at 154, you move up to 160, you're basically caught using PEDs, you wreck a killer, you move up to 68, you wreck a couple more people, you move up to 75, you wreck a killer. Then all of a sudden, you come in, body don't look the same, hair don't look the same, and you lose. Now, is Bivol better than Kovalev? I don't know. Bivol on the night that he fought Canelo might be better than Kovalev on the night that he fought Canelo, But I'm talking about overall. Like, is Bivol a better fighter than, Bivol in his prime, a better fighter than Kovalev in his prime? I don't really know, man. So that's what's kind of odd to me about it is, the guy was too big. I mean, I agree the guy was too big, but Kovalev was also too big. That's the thing. When you keep jumping up, I addressed this in the other video, in the prediction video, eventually there's going to come a point, whether it's light heavyweight, cruiserweight, or you move up and fight fucking Tyson Fury or Usyk or whatever. Somebody is eventually going to be too big for you, period, where you can't hurt them, you can't break them down, you can't, phase them in any type of way. And even though they may not be the biggest puncher or whatever the case is, they still have enough oomph behind just their sheer weight and their sheer size to either back you up or keep you off of them. So, I don't know, man. I'm not sure that I'm really just buying that Bivol is that good, because I've seen people with faster hands not land those combinations on Canelo. I saw some things where Canelo would throw a combination or throw a punch or two or whatever and get caught in the return fire. And again, I'm not trying to take anything away from Bivol, because Bivol can only do what Bivol can do, right? Canelo throws punches, he's got to either block him and dodge him and make Canelo pay for his openings, right? And that's what he did. So big ups to him for doing that. I'm not trying to take away what he did. What I am trying to take away is the fact that just because you do what you're supposed to do doesn't mean it's going to work. How many times have we seen people, throw the correct counter shots against Mayweather, or, be super fast and still not be able to hit him? Because you can only do what you can do, but the fighter you're fighting against can do what they can do, right? And that's the test. Okay, will you fight your best? Will he fight his best? But let's just assume that both people do. If guy A fights his best and guy B fights his best, who's able to do what they want to do better, in a sense where, okay, if Bivol's catching and shooting, is Canelo on his A game to where he's defending the return fire from Bivol? So the point that I'm trying to make is that it's a little bit odd to me that some people with, faster hands and things like that were not able to land these counter shots on Canelo. But then a guy like Bivol, and again, I'm not knocking Bivol. Bivol's a great fighter, bro. He's a great fighter, but he's not special, in my opinion. Maybe he proved me wrong as time goes on. I don't see Bivol as a special fighter. When I say special, I'm talking about a handful of people in a generation. Pacquiao, special fighter. Mayweather, special fighter. At this point in time, I would say Canelo, special fighter. Listen, if Canelo loses his next 4 or 5 fights in a row, then maybe I change my opinion. But at this point in time, Canelo, special fighter. Andre Ward, special fighter. There's certain people where it's like, these guys are just on another level from even the top guys, right? You got your top 5 pound-for-pound guys or whatever. Then you have your top handful, maybe 3 guys, maybe 1 guy, maybe 2 guy that you're like, okay, this guy's number 1 pound-for-pound, this guy's number 2 pound-for-pound, but in no way, shape, or form is he anything near this number 1 guy. This number 1 guy is just on a different level from everybody else. I don't see Bivol as being that guy. And it's a little bit hard for me to turn around and just blame this on the weight, considering that Canelo has fought at this weight and not only won at this weight, but scored a late knockout at this weight. So, for Canelo to look that tired that early and be eating that many counter shots from a guy that is not as fast as some of the other guys that Canelo has fought, it's a little odd to me, bro. Like, Caleb Plant was probably a bad style matchup. Billy Joe Sanders, probably a bad style matchup for Canelo. He has trouble with slick, good boxers like that. Still, even though he lost some rounds because this guy was throwing combinations, guy was landing some shots, moving his feet, staying in the middle of the ring, right? Okay, he lost some rounds, but he stayed patient, he stayed calm, he stayed stalking, he stayed cutting off the ring well. He stayed with effective, intelligent aggression to the point where even though he may have been losing some rounds, you could still watch that fight and say, Canelo's going to get him. He's going to break him down. I could see it coming. I could see it coming, right? And it's like, how is somebody like Caleb Plant, who is a counter puncher and quicker hands and just all the type of things that Caleb Plant did, how was it that Canelo was able to, throw a 1-2 and miss and then be gone from the return fire. Or maybe not even have his head in a position to begin with where Billy Joe or Caleb Plant were even able to hit him with that return fire, right? Like Pacquiao's a master at that. And it actually took me a while studying Pacquiao to understand how the fuck this guy landed so many straight left hands on people that had 6-7 inches reach on him. And it was his lead right foot. He would take this step out and up and to the side, and he would lean and shoot it down the pipe. And it gave him a lot more extension because of that big step forward and out. So they would be leaning in with the jab. He would step forward and out and lean in with the left. And he was able to make up for that 6-7 inch reach advantage. It's odd to me that Canelo was this type of fighter where it was like he seemed to have almost every angle covered, to the point where even if you put him in with a slick boxer, even if you put him in with a guy with good footwork, even if you put him in with a guy with quick hands, he was eventually able to stop this guy because he wasn't as vulnerable as most of these other people were. So it's like while he's throwing his combinations, his head is off the line. Or as soon as he's done with that combination, his feet are on the outside of this guy's lead foot, to the point where this guy might be able to touch him, but this guy ain't going to be able to land anything, significant. I mean, on top of the fact that Canelo's got a great chin, it's very hard to hurt him anyway, but you still would like to land significant, strong punches. You don't want to land grazing shots where he steps over this way and I'm throwing a punch like this, and no matter if it hits the guy flush or not, there's no power behind it because of the way my body is turned. Again, if you don't box, you might not understand what I'm saying, but if you've been in the ring enough times or you've studied the sport enough, you'll understand what I'm saying. So it was a little odd to me, man, that Canelo was getting hit with some of those counter shots that he was getting hit with. And that's not to say all of them, bro. Listen, again, Bivol, a very good fighter, okay? So when you have a guy that's a very good fighter and he's big and outweighs you and things like that, I understand there's a lot of things that come into play here, but it's not like Canelo got knocked out, right? Like, it's not like Canelo got beat the fuck up and knocked out and we're like, okay, he shouldn't fight at 75 anymore. To me, Canelo just looked different, man. He ran out of gas very early. He was getting hit with some shots that he doesn't normally get hit with. His body looked different. His hair looked different. So, listen, Bivol gained a fan from me in that fight for sure. I didn't know too much about him before this. I liked everything about the guy. I liked his approach to the fight. I liked the things that he said before, during, and after. I just thought that it's just the type of dude that I like. He just had a little dry sense of humor, said some funny things, blew off a lot of things where people tried to drag him into something, and he was like, nah, I'm not going to speak on that. So Bivol gained a fan from me for sure. So I'm not here to knock Bivol at all. But to me, man, there was just something off about Canelo in that fight. Now, that's not to say that if they rematch and Canelo's not off, that Canelo wins. Bivol might just have this guy's number, and it just might be, stylistically a guy that Canelo can't beat. I don't know. But I don't know, man. I just had to come on and address that. To me, both physically before the fight and in the ring during the fight, Canelo just looked different to me, man. So I just wanted to hop on here and address that, because going forward for future Canelo fights that I'm sure I'm going to do prediction videos on and stuff like that, I would like to have this documented so that I could go back and talk about it. I told you guys after that Bivol fight that he didn't look the same. So we'll keep an eye on Canelo going forward, man. I don't know what he's going to do. He says he's going to rematch Bivol. Honestly, and I'm not, I'm not a huge Canelo fan. I certainly don't dislike Canelo. I like Canelo. He's not my favorite fighter, but I do like Canelo. And this is just strictly speaking from, a boxing fan, not necessarily a Canelo fan. I just would rather see Canelo go back down to 60 or 68 and, just fight some of the guys down there, Benavidez and just things like that. I just feel like it's more of an even playing field, to the point where, okay, Benavidez is probably going to outwork him, right? Okay, cool, but Canelo's got some fucking crazy powerful counter shots. Well, Benavidez has fast hands, or faster hands, right? Well, but Canelo's got that deadly left hook to the body. All right, well, Benavidez this, right? Or, well, Canelo cuts the ring. So it's a back and forth, and it's like, okay, who can implement what they need to do to win that fight on that night? I feel like when you take, certain things, it's like, okay, Bivol does this better, Canelo does this better, sometimes that weight, that size, that style, whatever, can just give that little bit of an edge where it's like, all right, you know, Canelo didn't get fucking beat up and knocked out, but there's not really much he can do to beat that guy because that guy is good enough at that size that Canelo can't beat him. It might be the same thing if Canelo goes to another weight, right? Where it's like, well, that guy hits harder than Canelo, but Canelo's better at everything else. But this guy is also much bigger, and that played a factor. Canelo couldn't stop him from coming forward, or Canelo couldn't, whatever the fuck it is. So, I don't know, man. I just wanted to make this video just to document the fact that I really thought Canelo looked a lot different in that fight. I don't know if it's age. I don't know if he was on something and he's not now, whatever the case is. Again, that's just speculation, but I just wanted to get this out there so that way it's documented and we can keep a close eye on Canelo going forward. I'm curious to see what that body looks like in the next fight, and I'm very curious to see all the other things that I touched on with, you know, where the head is when he's throwing combinations and what he's getting hit with in return and things like that, because I just feel like that might have been the start of the decline for Canelo. But maybe I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong, because I would love to see Canelo in some more huge fights, and I would definitely love to see Canelo in some more fights where, you know, maybe he's losing or it looks like he could lose and he, you know, finds a way to get it done and stops the fight late, because those are always exciting. So just from a boxing fan, you know, I'd like to see Canelo go back down and fight some of those top guys, Charlo, Benavidez, things like that, that are more closer to his natural weight, where we can't turn around and say, you know, I don't know, maybe he shouldn't fight at that weight. That's not really the response we want when somebody fights. You don't want to just turn around and say, he shouldn't fight at that weight anymore. It's like, all right, that was a waste. You know what I mean? Not a waste. It was a good fight, but you understand what I'm saying. It's like, you know, should he really be up there? Again, he can win fights up there. I'm not saying Canelo can't win at light heavyweight, but I just would rather see him go back down. So let's keep an eye on Canelo going forward and see what happens.